Good evening. It is October 15th, 2014, 8 p.m. I'm Jason Bellamy, APTA's Director of Web and New Media, and I'll be your host tonight for an APTA Roundtable on the 2014 elections. Tonight we're going to talk about how election results will impact healthcare policy in the next Congress. We'll also be looking at specific races in the Senate that may determine who controls the Senate next year. Providing analysis tonight and answering any questions that you guys might submit, as well as ones that I have on hand already, is Michael Matlack. Michael is the APTA Director of Grassroots and Political Affairs. He's been at APTA for more than 15 years, handling PT-PAC and overseeing APTA's Grassroots Network. If you have any questions tonight, you can submit those on Twitter. You can do so by mentioning PT-PAC, at PT-PAC, or using the PTA advocacy hashtag. Let's start off this way. Michael, why don't you give me a sense of what PT-PAC is, who can contribute to it, what the effect of PT-PAC is?
Sure. Thank you, Jason. PT-PAC is the political arm of the American Physical Therapy Association. APTA members can contribute to the PAC, and that will help us give contributions to members of Congress, candidates running for Congress who are friendly to our issues. That is crucial to help them get elected, but also provides great opportunities for APTA staff and APTA members just to build relationships with them, to educate them on the issues, to be able to see firsthand what physical therapy is all about. And a lot of times that's what needs to take place for them to understand how important their role is up on Capitol Hill, issues that impact our members and the patients we serve. So without the PAC, unfortunately, we would lose out on a lot of opportunities just to be able to see them and educate them on the issues. And so it's important to have that voice through the PT-PAC, that we can make sure that they understand where we stand on the issues, but also that help out and make sure we have friendly members of Congress in Washington, D.C. that can help move our legislation forward.
And who can contribute to the PAC and why?
The only people that contribute to the PAC are APTA members. That's this federal law. Unfortunately, if you're not a member of APTA, you cannot contribute to the PAC. And you can give contributions through your personal account, or if you have a business. Unfortunately, there are rules in how that money is used. If it's a personal contribution, those contributions only can be used for direct contributions to candidates. And if a business contribution is used, that only can help out with the administration costs of the PAC. And that's this federal law on how that is, and how we can use that kind of money. So definitely we can use both, but personal contributions are what we really need in a sense for this upcoming election, to be able to help our friends get reelected coming up in November.
So that's another reason to be an APTA member. So the topic of tonight's roundtable, and again, if you've just tuned in, you can submit questions via Twitter using the PT-PAC handle or using the PT advocacy hashtag. I've got a list of questions I can get to here, Michael, but first, why don't you set the stage in the 2014 elections? What are we looking at?
Okay. We are just about 3 weeks away from the election, and things are really heating up. In the Senate currently, there are 53 Democrats plus 2 independents who caucus with Democrats and 45 Republicans. This means Republicans must gain 6 Democratically controlled seats without losing any of their own to take control of the Senate. In the House, there are 233 Republicans, 199 Democrats, and 3 vacancies, which are likely to be converted to 1 Republican seat and 2 Democrat seats, which gives us a grand total of 234 to 201 breakdown for Republicans. Since you need 218 seats to gain control of the House, Democrats would need to win 17 Republican-controlled seats without losing any of their own. So that's a little background of where we're at currently in Congress. So let's get to the questions.
Good. So the first one, so why is the Senate so competitive for Democrats in this election cycle?
Sure. There are 36 Senate seats up for grabs, 21 Democrat and 15 that are held Republicans. Of the 15 Republican seats, only 3 seats are competitive: Georgia, Kansas, and Kentucky. Of the 21 Democrat seats, 11 seats are competitive: Alaska, Arkansas, Colorado, Iowa, Louisiana, Michigan, Montana, North Carolina, New Hampshire, South Dakota, and West Virginia. As you can see, Democrats must defend almost 4 times as many seats than Republicans. So that makes it very difficult for them. Another dynamic to take into account is the last election, which was the 2012 presidential election. The presidential election is usually a good indicator for the next election. Of the 3 competitive Republican seats, Georgia, Kansas, and Kentucky all went for Mitt Romney. So they're very red states, and so it would be very challenging for the Democrats to win those seats. Of the 11 competitive Democrat seats, 7 of these states went for Mitt Romney: Alaska, Arkansas, Louisiana, Montana, North Carolina, South Dakota, and West Virginia. And 6 out of those 7 states went to Mitt Romney by over 14 percentage points. So that makes it very, as you can see with the playing field here, for Democrats to control the Senate, they have to win in red states to hold on. Also, what makes these races hard to defend is because they have to defend more seats, it take more money for them to really spread it out to be able to keep control. Also, a lot of times what happens is they blame the party in control. Right now, the Democrats are in control of the Senate. If they don't like what's going on with legislation in the Senate, they blame the party in power, which is the Democrats at the moment. Another thing to take into account is, especially in those states, which many of them are red states, is where President Obama's popularity is. There was a recent poll that was out that showed that Obama's popularity is now at 40%, an all-time low. So many of these senators supported some of Obama's initiatives like Obamacare, and so Republicans are trying to tie them to a lot of those initiatives and tie them to President Obama because they know that he's unpopular in many of these states. So those are just some of the reasons why it's just so difficult. There's a lot of states, a lot of red states that they have to win in, and also the popularity that President Obama is right now. And like I said, many of those states was won by Mitt Romney in the last election.
And so, are there Democratic-controlled votes right now? Republicans will definitely coming up.
Yeah, there's 3 states that I believe will definitely swing to Republicans. First is Montana. That seat is currently held by Senator Walsh, who was appointed when Senator Max Baucus was appointed as ambassador of China. He was in the race, but then it was discovered that he plagiarized his final paper for his master's degree, and so he decided to get out of the race. They appointed a state legislator very late, so it makes it very difficult for them. Representative Steve Daines is the Republican nominee, and he's doing very well, so I think he will win in Montana. In South Dakota, former Governor Mike Rounds is a Republican nominee. He's very well known and liked in the state. Rick Whalen is the Democrat nominee who was a former staffer to former Senator Daschle. And what makes this race a little unusual is there's an independent named Larry Presler, who used to be a Republican senator. And so it is possible that former Governor Mike Rounds might win the Senate contest without a majority. That's a plurality, which is allowed in that state of South Dakota. But I do think Mike Rounds will win that. In the third state was West Virginia. Rep. Shelley Moore Capito, who's a very well-known name in the state, is doing very well against her Democrat opponent, Natalie Tennant. And so those 3 states, which were states, like I said before, that Mitt Romney won, or it's not even in the margin of error, probably up by more than 10 percentage points in many polls. So those are 3 states automatically that go to the Republicans. So Republicans are halfway towards taking that Senate by notching those 3 seats. Like I said, they needed 6 seats. Right now, I think they got 3 definitely in the bag.
Okay, and so you highlighted a few of those, but in terms of getting that Senate control, what are the races that are really going to determine who controls the Senate?
Sure. There are 7 Democratically held seats that are considered toss-ups. Republicans must win 3 of these seats, with the 3 seats mentioned previously, without losing Georgia, Kansas, and Kentucky. First, regarding Georgia, Kansas, and Kentucky, I do believe Georgia and Kentucky, which held by Republicans now. They will continue to be held by Republicans right now. You would think that wouldn't be a problem for Republicans to hold, but Senator Pat Roberts, he has been there for a very long time, but he thought it was going to be an easy race. But some things have come up that he doesn't have an official residence in the state of Kansas, which makes it kind of hard for people for Kansas to vote for him. Also, the Democrat got out of the race to make it a two-person race between Senator Roberts and Greg Orman, who's an independent. Another complicating factor is in the governor's race, Governor Brownback, who's running for re-election, is not well liked in the state. The Democrat nominee is ahead in the polls. So both of those reasons makes that a race to watch. But I do feel that Senator Roberts will pull through, but that could make a complicating factor for Republicans, because that would mean they would need more to win more than 6 races. They would need at least win 7 races if they lose that race. But the Democrat-held seats, the 7 seats that I was talking about, first is Alaska. Senator Mark Begich is running against Daniel Sullivan. Begich 6 years ago barely won in that state. He won with 48% of the vote, and so that makes it very difficult for him in the sense that he barely won last time, and it's a very red state. So that's something that he will have to look at, and I think it's very challenging. In Arkansas, Senator Mark Pryor is up against Representative Tom Cotton. Pryor is a well-known name in the state. His father was senator before him, but we'll see if that Pryor name can help him get across the finish line this time. In Colorado, Senator Mark Udall versus Rep. Cory Gardner. Again, Udall is a very well-known name. Colorado has become more of a purple state, so it's a harder state for Republicans to win, but that's definitely doable. In Iowa, Representative Bruce Braley is running against State Senator Joni Ernst. You would think that wouldn't be a problem, and it wasn't going to be a problem in the beginning of the race, but Congressman Braley made some comments about the other senator from Iowa, which wasn't taken well by most people in Iowa, so he'll have to make up some ground to win that state. In Louisiana, Mary Landrieu is running against Representative Bill Cassidy. Representative Cassidy has been running a good race, but Senator Mary Landrieu has won tough races, but like I said, Louisiana is a tough red state for any Democrat. Michigan, Representative Peters is running against Terry Lynn Land. Michigan is on the other side. It's a very blue state. Republicans think they have an opportunity there, but I think it will be hard for them to win that state. And North Carolina, Senator Kay Hagan is versus State House Speaker Thom Tillis. Senator Kay Hagan was thought to be in a lot of trouble, but she's run a very good race, and right now she's ahead. So out of those 7 races, the 3 races that I think will change hands are Alaska, Arkansas, and Louisiana. So with those 3 states and the 3 states I mentioned earlier, if also Republicans hold all their seats, those are the 6 seats that will the Republicans gain control of the Senate. But like I said, all these 7 seats right now are toss-up. So it could be a change one over another. The Republicans could get more, or the Democrats could hold them. They're still all within the margin of error at this time.
Okay, so if you're just joining us, it's about 8:15 p.m. here on October 15th, and we're talking about the 2014 elections with Mike Matlack, APTA's Director of Grassroots and Political Affairs. If you want to send a question, we'll try to get to those. You can do that via Twitter, mentioning PTPAC at PTPAC, or by using the PT Advocacy hashtag. Until then, we're going to continue with questions from Mike. So, Michael, here we talked about the Senate races. Is there any chance that on election night we might not know who controls the Senate?
Yes, it's very possible. In the state of Georgia and Louisiana, the candidates win a majority of the vote. So if the percentage is less than 50%, there will be a runoff in December for Louisiana and January for Georgia between the top 2 vote getters. I think it's likely that will occur in Louisiana. So if Republicans pick up 5 seats, the ratio would be 50-49 in favor of Republicans, with everything hanging in the balance on one last election, Louisiana. Can you imagine the Senate being in balance for waiting a whole month until that next election, you can imagine all the money that would go into that race, all the ads from both parties. It would be crazy. I want to be in that state. And so it definitely could happen, and I think it's likely in Louisiana. So if the breakdown is 50-49 Republicans at that time, everything will hinge on that one race to determine who will be in control.
Well, that will be exciting if for people who find that thing exciting. So we focused on the Senate so much. Why the focus on the Senate and not the House?
As I already mentioned, there are many competitive seats in the Senate, especially for Democrats in the House of Representatives. At the beginning of tonight, I mentioned that Democrats must win 17 Republican-held seats without losing any of their competitive seats. Currently, there are 26 competitive Democratic-held seats and only 11 competitive Republican-held seats in the House. The numbers are just not there. Even if you brought into likely held seats 15 Republicans and 12 Democrats, which expands it out even farther, usually only one or two of these seats switch hands in any given election. So there's just not enough seats. And the main reason for that is because of redistricting that occurred a couple years ago, back in between 2010 and 2012. Both parties did whatever they could to maximize less competitive districts by drawing lines which would stuff as many of the opposing party districts in that state. Redistricting really has caused less competitive races in the House unless there is a wave election, and I don't think that's going to happen this time. I don't think we'll see things change until redistricting occurs again in 2020.
Okay, so here's a question that anybody watching in theory wants to know. Are there any House races that sort of the physical therapy profession needs to be paying attention to, and why should they be paying attention to those races?
Sure. Of the 17 toss-up races, the 12 Democrats and 5 Republicans in the House, 14 of these sitting members of Congress are supporters of physical therapy issues. Specifically, repealing the Medicare therapy cap is one of the main ones. All 14 of the 17 are co-sponsors of that legislation. Many of these individuals also support some of our other initiatives, like adding PTs to the National Health Service Corps to meet the needs of underserved areas. So PT PAC will definitely be involved in these races, helping these members get reelected. They come from various states like Arizona, California, Georgia, Illinois, Minnesota, New Hampshire, West Virginia, Colorado, Nebraska, New York. So a lot of different states that a lot of these members are in, but we'll be definitely involved. You know, a lot of people say, well, you know, the House is not going to change hands, so why do we need to support the PAC? Why do we need to be involved? We need to get these members there because they're already on board with our issues. They already understand what physical therapy is all about and how it impacts our patients. So we need to get them back.
So if somebody's living in one of those states, I mean, what can they do? And first of all, how can they find out if their representative is a supporter of PT issues, and how do they lend their support most effectively?
Great, great question. Hopefully, they have already downloaded the PT Action app on their smartphone, because if you go on that on your smartphone and download it, one of the items on there, you can pull up your member of Congress and you can see if they're co-sponsoring our legislation. So that's a great way if they're already a member of Congress. And so by doing that, you can see that you can help out in their campaigns by calling their campaign office. You can vote for them. Of course, you can support the PT PAC because we give our contributions really the next 2 weeks to get them the money that they need so they can put up ads, they can do the things that they need to do to get reelected.
Great. So Congress is going to return after the election. It's going to be a lame duck session. What type of issues are likely to come up in those final months of the year?
Yeah, a lot of it depends if Republicans take control of the Senate. If they do, then if Republicans do take control, then Republicans will not want to do much except to pass a CR, which is a continual resolution, which just keeps the government funding for a short time. Right now, the CR ends that we currently have on December 11th, so we'll have to do something before December 11th to continue funding for the government. You know, it could be for a few months. It could also match up against some of our expiring deadlines that we have, which many of you know, on April 1st, that's our deadline on the Medicare therapy cap. A hard therapy cap will go back into place April 1st. Secondly, Medicare cuts in payment for reimbursement under Medicare also happens on April 1st. Over a 20% cut would occur if Congress does nothing. So it is possible that they could do a month or 2 months, or they could do it, longer than that. But I think it's going to be short term because Republicans really want to get their members here because they've increased their numbers in the Senate and the House. And so they want to be in charge. They want to determine what the policy and the agenda is. Right now, they cannot do that in the Senate. So I think it would be shorter term, and they would just pass something like a CR just to keep the government funded. If Democrats keep control of the Senate, then it's more likely more things will get done in the last 2 months of the year, like an omnibus appropriations bill, which is basically taking all the appropriation bills that haven't been passed and to pass that in one big bill, and that would keep the government funded all the way till the end of the next fiscal year, which would be September 2015. Also, other legislation may be considered if Democrats are in control, include expiring tax extenders and the National Defense Authorization Act. Like I said before, if we were still waiting on the Louisiana race in December, everything might wait until after that election is over. So everything that we would like to get done in the sense of legislation, like a CR or if it's an omnibus appropriations bill, all that has to be pushed another month if we're waiting on one race to determine who's going to be in control starting in January. So it's kind of up in the air, but that's kind of the two scenarios, if Republicans are in control and if the Democrats are in control of the Senate.
Great. So the election happens, we get the results. Will those results dictate in any way what APTA's policy priorities are?
Yeah, if Republicans take control of the Senate, there will be different chairmen of the committees. Senator Orrin Hatch will become chairman of the Finance Committee, which handles most of the healthcare issues that impact PT. The good thing is that many of our issues are supported by both sides of the aisle, so we are hopeful that whatever the result is in the Senate, we hope to make progress. We do have good relationships with some of our members, with Senator Hatch, and we will continue to build that relationship with also many members of the committee. Usually also there's changes on that committee based on the ratios you could have or retirements. So we could have some new members on the Finance Committee also. So we'll have to see where they stand and work with them to educate them on the issues if they're not already. On the House side, there will be a new chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, which handles many of our issues. At this time, it's hard to say how this will impact our priorities. There are a couple possible people who might become chairman. One of them is former Vice President candidate Paul Ryan. He might become the new chairman, or Kevin Brady of Texas, who was the Health Subcommittee chairman. So we will see how that impacts us, but it will be a new person running that committee. On the Energy and Commerce Committee in the House, there will be a lot of new faces from both parties joining because of retirements or people leaving the committee. Also, Democrats will be choosing a new ranking minority member on that committee, which will impact how our issues move forward. So there will be a lot of new faces on that committee. Hopefully, they've already supported us on other issues, even though they haven't been on that committee, but we'll have to wait and see when they join that committee. And all those different faces, especially on the House side, who will be chairman, who will be ranking minority man, who will be joining those committees, usually takes place about a week or two after the election when they come back. So those 2 weeks before Thanksgiving is very important, and we'll be able to really see in the House how everything turns out for us in regards to our relationships with those new members, and kind of see a little bit what direction they might take in the new Congress.
And so, you mentioned issues that are important to physical therapy. Earlier, you mentioned the therapy cap, obviously. Just for people who don't know the process and how it works, there are numerous things that APTA is advocating on, representing physical therapists, day in and day out, constant presence on the Hill. But those priority issues, you sort of can't be there full throttle on all those. How are those priority issues identified? Just give a brief overview of how that process works.
Sure. Every 2 years, we do a survey that it goes out to our members and ask them what are the priority issues that you think APTA should be looking at. And some of that survey is based, of course, on the previous year, some of the issues that we've been working on in the past. So taking that information from the survey that we get from our APTA members, it goes to our PPAC committee, which is kind of our policy committee, which is made up of APTA members that were appointed by the board. And they look at those issues. They've been very involved in the issues on that committee, and they meet on a very frequent basis, either through conference call or face-to-face meetings. So they're very well informed about where we stand on the issues, how things are going up on Capitol Hill, how that relates into some of the issues regarding CMS. And so they take that survey and they discuss it. They look over the issues and kind of prioritize where we should put our interest in, or in financially, time, so we can have a focus on where to go in the next Congress. That when they come up with that list of priorities, it then goes to the APTA board for them to consider. They look at those, make changes to where they think we should go, and ask questions to the PPAC committee, and basically they will approve the next public priorities for the next Congress. So that's kind of how it works out, and then that's kind of our marching orders for the next Congress.
Great. So, again, if you're just joining us, I'm joined by Michael Matlack, APTA's Director of Grassroots and Political Affairs, and we're talking about the 2014 elections. You can contribute questions via Twitter by mentioning the PTPAC handle or the PT Advocacy hashtag. So if you submit your questions, we'll continue to be here and take some of those questions. In the meantime, we'll continue on. Michael, so let's go back to the scenario of the Senate races. Let's say that the Republicans take the Senate. At that point, we've got a Republican-controlled Congress, and we've got a Democrat in the Oval Office. How's that going to affect policymaking?
Yeah, unfortunately, honestly, I don't think a lot of things will get done unless it's bipartisan. President Obama will be a lame duck president, and Republicans will be waiting for the next presidential election to win the presidency. Republicans must be careful, because if nothing gets done or they overreach, who will the public blame? There's nobody really to blame but a Republican Congress. Usually the party in control of Congress is who gets the blame. In 2016, Democrats have the edge in the Senate races. So if Republicans don't watch out, they could be swept out after only 2 years if they take the Senate in 2014. So, if Republicans pass things that are very partisan, which it can be also very difficult, especially in the Senate, when the margin is going to be very small. You really need 60 votes to be able to pass something, because Democrats could filibuster legislation which would prevent it from being heard. And so you really need, that's how the Senate is really made up. To really get things through, you got to do things in a bipartisan nature. So if they don't do that, it will be really hard to get things through. And if somehow something partisan does get through both the House and Senate, President Obama is going to veto it. And then you need 2/3 of both chambers to override that veto, which I think is impossible to do in this environment. So I think Republicans really got to think closely about how they proceed if they do take control of the Senate, in the sense of how they move initiatives forward, if they really want to get some things done. For us, of course, some of our bipartisan legislation, the Medicare therapy cap, which has a majority of members of Congress from both parties who co-sponsor the legislation right now, and also fixing the Medicare fee schedule. There is general agreement on both sides on the policy of how to fix those things. It's always comes to how you pay for it. And so next year will be a very important year. They all said they want to take care of this. So we'll see if it gets done. We hope it gets done, because I would say in an election year, it makes it even more difficult to pass legislation like this. So let's cross our fingers, and legislation like this that really impacts our profession, our patients, that this would be something that they could get done next year.
Yeah, about that legislation that could impact physical therapy, either the profession or the patients. Is there anything that can happen on election night that can sort of have a major impact?
In a sense, like I mentioned before, the biggest changes in the House will be the new committee chairs and ranking minority members to handle healthcare issues. And usually, in that regard, a lot of that in the House is mostly because of retirements. And that's one thing that is going to be interesting in the House. A lot of people who have been there many years are leaving. So a lot of policy minds will be gone. And you'll have people, new people in there who haven't gone through the process of really working together and have gone over a lot of healthcare legislation. So it'll be interesting how they handle it. But like I said before, and we've heard on Capitol Hill, they don't want to redo a lot of things like the issues I mentioned, like the therapy cap and the fee schedule, because they don't want to waste a lot of time on something they already agree on. So the hope is that on those pieces of legislation, that can move quickly through the committee process if it does go through the committee process. But like I said, the sticking point is how you pay for it. We also hope that issues like the adding PTs to the National Health Service Corps will be able to move forward also. It's very non-controversial. We have some other issues like locum tenens that hopefully we can get through. Direct access, self-referral legislation, things of that sort. Was a little bit more, might be harder to get through, but we hope that we can make some headway on those issues too in the next Congress.
Great. So once this election ends, immediately, obviously the focus is going to shift to the 2016 presidential elections. I think I can guess one of them. Who are the front runners as you see it from each party?
You know, on the Democrat side, everyone knows that, you know, if she decides to run, Hillary Clinton is what most people think will get the nomination of Democrats. It would be interesting to see who would run against her if she's in the race, because it would take a lot of gumption to get in the race if she's in the race. But, you know, we thought that 8 years ago when on the race, oh, she's the front runner. Then all of a sudden, President Obama came along and he beat her. Anything is possible, but I think if she decides not to get in the race, you have Vice President Joe Biden who might get in the race, Senator Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts, and also former mayor of San Antonio, Julian Castro, who is now in the Obama administration, have been talked about as possible Democrat contenders for run for president. On the Republican side, you have a whole giant list. You have Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky. You have Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey, former Governor Jeb Bush. Wouldn't that be interesting? Another Bush-Clinton fight. You also have Governors Mike Pence of Indiana, John Kasich of Ohio, Scott Walker of Wisconsin, and other senators, Rob Portman of Ohio and Mark Rubio of Florida. So you have a whole host of them. Right now, polls don't have any of these people way ahead of one another. They're all either in the teens or single digits. So I don't even think the general public at this point knows which one they like more than another. But I think it's going to be another crowded field for Republicans.
Okay, so that's what we have to look forward to in the short term. What can members do now? What can they do now to help APTA's efforts to forward the cause on Capitol Hill? What's the best way to get involved?
Sure. Well, members should definitely be a member of our grassroots network, the P Team. They can sign up on our advocacy area of our website. You receive up-to-date information about what's happening on Capitol Hill and CMS and how you can contact your members of Congress when important issues come up. We send action alerts when we need you to contact your member of Congress through email or giving them a call on the phone when issues come up. It could be something that's happening on the House or the Senate floor, or asking them to co-sponsor, or just alerting them to something that's going on that we want them to get involved in. As we all know, the election is only a couple of weeks away, so if you haven't already, please contribute to PT PAC so we can help PT-friendly candidates get elected on election day. APTA members can make online contributions at www.ptpac.org. If you've never donated before, we have started a $20 campaign. If every member would donate $20, we would be the largest healthcare provider PAC in the country. Regardless of the outcome of the election, PT PAC will need to be strong so we can have the opportunities to educate and build relationships with members of Congress next year. PT PAC makes those opportunities happen for the profession.
Awesome. So yeah, skip your Starbucks this week. Donate to PT PAC. That $20 can go a long way. Again, you have to be an APTA member to donate. That's another reason to join. Thanks for watching our roundtable. Thank you, of course, to Michael Matlack, APTA's Director of Grassroots and Political Affairs, for providing his insight. You can find other roundtables like this on our YouTube channel. APTA has a YouTube channel that's YouTube/APTA video, youtube.com/APTA video. We, of course, have our consumer channel for Move Forward PT as well. Check those videos out, and, of course, support PT PAC. Michael Matlack, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching this 2014 elections APTA Roundtable. Take care.